What's up, paramotor world, paraglider world? I'm Chris Santacroce, and we're here at Superfly headquarters in Salt Lake City, Utah, where you're always invited to come around and fly with us year-round. We're the importer for Advanced Gin and Nova, high adventure Beamer reserves, and a variety of other products. Check us out on the web at superflyinc.com and also on all your Instas, Facebooks, etc. Thanks for joining us today. As you know, we have a lot of videos that speak to the less addressed subjects in paramotoring, paragliding, usually pretty heavy on the good information and a little light on the production quality. So we're glad you're here. And today we are going to talk about the state of affairs as of November 2022, paramotor, a little bit paraglider in the US. It's been an interesting year. I think probably the most notable thing that happened was the market grew. There's a lot of people flying. We don't have a fantastic way to figure out exactly how many, but we know that activity is up. And so a variety of things happen. One thing that's happened is that a lot of folks have been out flying and had an airplane fly by. And we've even had like a really unfortunate thing happen where there was a collision between a paraglider and an airplane this year. So it happened. That thing that we dreaded and we'd hoped never happened, it did happen. The other thing that happened is that people are flying, and they're flying a lot. They're flying with friends, and they are flying the same spots with regularity. And we find that there's a little bit of a case where people are losing sights, and we want to talk a little bit about that. And then finally, we're going to talk a tiny bit about the way that the market's going. What are people up to? And it's basically going the direction of sort of bigger motors, sort of smaller gliders, sort of aggressive flying, cross country. And it's kind of starting to be the word on the street that that's just what the sport is. And we want to talk about that effect and what we might be able to do to help things out. So from the top, here we are, 2022, and it happened. There was a collision between an airplane and a paramotor, and you know, not a huge deal because quite honestly, things happen in the big bad world. And airplanes have their fair share of troubles. Every week, every month, things happen. But a thing happened involving us, and the question is, how can we get ahead of it, and what can we do, especially in light of the fact that we've all been flying along and seen an airplane go by? Well, here's the answer. Just as quick and easy as can be, you can pull up Flight Radar 24 or any other app on your phone, and you can see the active airplanes in your area. So I know that's a little bit of a stretch for most people to look at their phone while they're flying, and especially when it's that small, but we have to kind of be open-minded. And so one of the ideas is that maybe not every single pilot is watching the phone and looking for traffic, but maybe, just maybe, one of the pilots is, or maybe you're taking turns. I've been on flights around here recently where we were taking turns. A few of us had the phones up and we were calling out traffic, and we were able to do things like, hey, let's move to the other side of the freeway. That guy looks like he's on the other side. Hey, let's all descend, and then it'll be no factor. Hey, let's keep an eye on this guy. And you know, somebody sneaks up on you, all of a sudden they're really close, you think it might be a thing, you can just start making circles and make yourself more visible. You could make an emergency descent if you have the skills for it. There's a lot of things that can be done, including you could put somebody on the ground who's just looking at the app, spotting the airplanes, and then also making radio calls with a handheld radio. So here we are thinking, you know, that there's not really much we can do, and the fact is we have the information, we have the technology. I'm not saying that this is the only thing we can do. I'm just saying that organically, just thinking a little bit outside the box and being as creative as we could be around here, we came up with a bunch of great stuff. And we've been out coaching. We've been having guys flying around, and as the coach, I'm just standing there on the ground with my Flight Radar 24 pulled up, and I can see people a bunch of miles out. I can see their altitude, and I can see their heading. I can see what type it is, and I just call it out to my students. Hey, just so you know, there's a guy, you know, coming from the west, and he's 1,000 feet above you, so it should be no factor as long as you stay at that altitude. And I think, you know, that's one way that we as a community can get ahead of this problem and this thing. It's totally in our best interest. Obviously, we want to stay off the radar of the FAA. We just want to keep being self-regulating, and we love being ultralights. I don't see any reason why we can't just continue being just the way we are, but we'll probably need to do some work. Super interesting stuff, great to talk about, air it out. Okay, so we're on to our second subject, which is the big bad paramotor world, especially in the USA. Again, we have no idea how many people are flying, but we just can't help noticing that everywhere you look, there's an instructor and then a flock, and that people are out there having fun, getting after it, and what could be better? It's a magical time for us to be in this sport and to be in this business. It does carry with it a little bit of responsibility. If we build big flocks as instructors, and if our folks are good and they get after it a lot, especially if they fly the same sites, it is fact that people in the neighborhood, people close by, etc., are going to get tired of us and the noise. So we have to be a little bit discreet. We have to create a little tiny bit of mystery about what we're doing. Sometimes we like to explain the difference between seeing an eagle. Whoa, that's an eagle. So cool. And then it disappears. Where did it come from? Where did it go? It's kind of like a magical experience, right? And then on the other hand, a fly in your car. You can't get rid of the damn thing. You roll down the window, it won't fly out. It just won't leave. So as paramotor pilots, we have the choice. We can be one or we can be the other. And so if you want to be the former, then the trick is to be a little strategic. So that means maybe you don't warm up your motor at the site. Maybe you warm them up at home and then come and take your flight from the site. Maybe when you take off, you immediately leave the precious landing area and you just go do all of your flying a couple miles away out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe when it's time to land, you come back engine off. As a paraglider, that's easy for me to say because we do that all the time, but you know, come back engine off in a big field. Maybe after you land, maybe don't hang out. Maybe don't just spend time coiling up your glider. Maybe just throw it in the car and load up and just leave, like be gone in a couple minutes. Even better, make a plan. Get some support, take off one place, go land another. As you can imagine, if you have a really precious site that you really care about, that you really want to be able to fly over the decades, you're going to have to be kind. You're going to have to be a little discreet. And the best thing you could do is to create some mystery about where you come from and where you go. If you hang out and rev up the engines and have a big party and you spend the whole afternoon there and you do multiple flights and you fly right around the side and you spend a long time packing up, zero mystery about what you're doing. And like I said, people are going to get tired of you pretty quick. So as a community, we need to start thinking along these lines and ask yourself, are you treating your precious site with the respect that it deserves? This is also true with airports. You know, if you find a way to fly discreetly at an airport and create a little mystery about, you know, where you came from, where you're going, then there's a good chance they'll be happy with you over the years. So that's number two. Moving on to number three, if you have your finger on the pulse, then you will notice that the fashion is to have a big motor and a slightly smaller glider as time goes on. And there's no doubt it's cool. Nobody loves the small, fast stuff as much as me. I just got finished flying some 11-meter stuff, and I have a 16-meter motor glider, and I get it. But it's not for sure that everybody should go that direction, and it's not for sure that everybody who's riding a big motor and a small glider can do it forever. Here's why. First, we'll talk about the beginners, okay? Everyone agrees this is the most magical thing you could do. Seriously, foot launching and having an aircraft that fits in a backpack or the back of your car, being able to launch that thing anywhere, land it anywhere, and do anything you want with it, it is pure gold, all right? There's no reason why we couldn't do simple flights the whole rest of our lives on whatever equipment, and it would still be just as magic. Big question starts to be, why is it that we start to get led the direction of smaller gliders, bigger motors? Where does that come from? Is it something we need? I would argue that it's a little bit because we have our finger on the pulse of the worldwide community, and the people who are the leaders in the sport are going the direction of the big motors, small gliders. And I would argue that the average person probably doesn't need to follow suit, okay? So it turns out that when you do, then you have things happen like you end up running a lot faster, right? You end up with a little bit more wear and tear on your back. Even when you grease the landings, you end up with, you know, a little bit sore knees and that sort of thing over time. And the wear and tear is real. If you're in this game for 10 years, 20 years, then you're gonna have to budget the amount of cartilage that you donate to every takeoff, the amount of back wear and tear that you expend on every flight. You might not be able to fly a big heavy motor your whole entire life. You might not be able to fly a small glider. You don't hear it mentioned. It's kind of like the unspoken truth about paramotoring in general is that if you fly a bunch of days in a row with a good heavy motor, you know, your landings are good, okay, by the time a few days pass, you're going to start to feel it. And it's not the kind of thing where it's just muscles, right? This is not muscles that we're talking about. We're not talking about an athletic endeavor. We're talking about compromising our cartilage, basically, ligaments, joints, etc. And over the years, it can be considerable. One thing's for sure is that the global paramotor, high-level, elite scene is headed towards slalom. And mad respect to the guys who fly slalom and to the people who have that as their dream and want to go chase it down. More power to you for sure. I just want to throw it out there that the slalom as it exists right now is pretty good because it's over water and it's pretty amazing to see. But we could probably do better. My opinion is that if we went with a more average motor size, probably more average glider size, if we make it so that the person with the heaviest motor and the fastest glider doesn't win, that rather the person who has the most sort of skill wins, then the sport will be going a better direction. So my suggestion is, instead of paramotor slalom, paramotorcross with a Le Mans start, meaning all the pilots start in a row with their gear in a pile. And so the race starts at that moment, and you get to watch everybody get their gear out, get the engine started, and get in the air. That'll create a natural separation on the race course, and you can have 3 and 4 people over the water on the race course at one time, bumping wingtips, chasing each other. 3 or 4 people over the water at one time is something to watch. And there may be big separation, maybe not, but if you push the sport that direction, then we're going to have a spectator sport, and we're going to have something that we can build on, and it won't demand that everybody be donating cartilage to every takeoff and landing. So somewhere there's probably a slightly even better idea than mine, but I'm super happy to share that notion with the public so that people can chew on it and think about it. And if you ever are looking for entertainment, just line up 3 or 4 of you on a given Saturday, and everybody have a little race to get in the air. And it's some good spectating. You'll have a good time with it. Finally, it's true that we have some problems from people doing aggressive acro, especially low. And so again, we know where it's coming from. It's fashionable to do, and the videos show people doing it. People with very little time will say things like, hey, I get a little bit bored just cruising level and straight, and I want to mix it up. I want to fly cross country, etc. And I'm going to suggest that that's mostly from your YouTube influence. You're watching the YouTube and you're watching the personalities there, and they're saying things like, hey, I want to mix it up. Hey, I want to throw it around. Hey, I want to do some cross country. And you're kind of letting them project their agenda on you. So think about what you need, like the minimum you need to keep the sport interesting is probably not going to include that. You can probably be happy flying an average size glider and a light motor. Personally, I mix it up throughout the year. I'll fly a free flight glider that's very efficient, and I'll a lot of times fly an Atom 80. I'll fly with wheels throughout the year. And by the time the year is done, I find out that I've done a fair amount of motoring, but I'm not sore from it. And I'm not like donating my precious cartilage every flight to to the cause. So, little perspective, see what you can do to do some self-seeking and figure out exactly what it is that makes this sport work for you. Don't let the folks that are out there in the public eye project their risk profile and their agenda onto you. Think about the folks in the old days that didn't have the internet and didn't have the YouTube, and how they would go out and fly. It turns out that folks would be really happy doing the simplest flights for years and years and years. And you know what? A lot of those people who started like that, they're still in the sport. And that's what we want for you. We really, really want for all these people that we pour heart and soul into teaching, we want them to be around not just next year, but like 10 years from now, like 20 years from now. And we do the work. In our school, we do the work of sort of brainwashing people with this chat that you're hearing right now. And by the time they're with us for a while, and by the time we make some solid choices while we're teaching them, they start to have the right answer to the questions. When we say, hey, should we send it in absolute no wind? They go, nah, I think I'll just wait for a little breeze. And when I say, hey, which motor do you want to fly to? They go, well, I think I might go for the light one. I'm a little sore from yesterday. I say, how about if we put you on a slightly bigger glider for today, just because there's no wind and the landing might be a little firm? They go, yeah. So they leave our school with just like this self-preservation, cartilage preservation mindset. and it makes it so that they'll end up in this deal down the road. We've all had skateboards, we've all had one wheels, mountain bikes, skis, etc. And we've all had things happen while playing with them. And we all know what happens when a bad or scary things happen. You will just go through the garage and you'll see the one wheel sitting there and you go, not getting on that thing today. That thing thumped me the other day. And it kind of takes the fun out of it. And it makes it so that you don't just gravitate toward it. And let's be honest, this flying thing, this paramotor thing, it is the best. This is the one that you want to protect. Treat it like a fragile egg. Treat yourself like a fragile egg, that you might be in this deal over the decades. There's absolutely no doubt that there's a lot of great instructors making a lot of good pilots, but it's also true that you see a ton of stuff for sale used and people making these comments like, hey, this gear just isn't getting used enough and I want to pass it on to someone else, or my focus has changed. And these are people that we know and like, and you know what? They're on to something else. They're on to the next sport, and we want them, we want you to be our flying friends over the decades. For that reason, we hope that you sip a little bit of our Kool-Aid, take a little bit of this brainwashing, and if you ever get a chance, come around, hang out with us, because this is how we talk. And we try to make it so that the chat on the street is a healthy talk toward like long-term flying. Forgive me if all of this stuff sounds like old guy talk. Like I said, this year I'm 50, so I can't help it. You know, and we know that when you're 20, you don't have thoughts like this and you don't talk like this. But it doesn't hurt for you to be 20 or 30 something and hanging around with the guys who are talking the 50-year-old talk. It will benefit you in the end. If you have any thoughts, throw them in the comments. If you like what we're saying, give us a like. For sure, subscribe, because we have lots more videos coming. And if you have any ideas for video stuff you want to hear about, we are doing ground school every single day. We do a lot of it on Zoom, and we can loop you in on that. But we do these ground schools every single day, so there's not a subject one that we don't talk about at length repeatedly. This is my 32nd year of coaching, and I still present every day with this exact same enthusiasm. We'd love for you to be a part of it, and we'll see you soon.